family, it is Mike Greenberg wishing you a very safe and healthy and happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for being with us here on ESPN Radio. We will be back on Monday live, but right now, please enjoy as we continue looking back at some of the best moments, conversations, and interviews that we've had since we came back in August. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. As Northwestern played just a sensational game on Saturday and opened the eyes, I think, of a lot of people across the country with a decided victory over a favored Wisconsin team. And as Dave said, Northwestern now takes control of the Western Division of the Big Ten. And I've been very calm. I've been very relaxed. I wore a purple shirt today, but I haven't really done much. So give me a moment, if I could, just to freak out as I welcome my favorite person probably right now that ever lived. He is one of the greatest players Northwestern ever had, and he is the coach of the Northwestern Wildcats, currently ranked number 11 in the country by the Associated Press. He is Pat Fitzgerald, and he is with me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. All kidding aside, Coach, congratulations on a day that I think, there were things that you knew and that people like me knew that I think a lot of the country didn't know, and I think a lot of the country found them out. I wonder how you're feeling today as with all the attention that your team has justifiably been receiving.
Well, thanks, Greeny, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family and to all of your great listeners. Just really proud of our guys. We've been working hard to get back our pride. We had a tough year last year. The guys have sacrificed greatly, and we've put ourselves in position now to maybe have a significant finish to the year. So how am I feeling? I got a game plan, and we got to get ready to go play a tough opponent in Michigan State on the road. So that's what you do as a coach. You have a 24-hour rule and you move on.
Well, that's where I wanted to talk about, because we can. There's been so much conversation already about what has happened. Let's talk about where we are. I've never seen a narrative on any team change as much as it seems to on this team over the weekend. On Saturday morning, you were a more than a touchdown underdog against Wisconsin. By Saturday night, I'm reading columns left and right of people saying Northwestern should run the table. Northwestern will be a double-digit favorite in all the rest of their games. They should go into the Big Ten championship game with a chance to play in the college football playoff. How do you handle all of that with your players?
Well, kind of like I did last year when they said that I couldn't coach. You just can't be on the roller coaster, right? I mean, the same articles that were bashing our guys a year ago, and rightfully so and respectfully so, or, when you win, it just gets flipped over. And so you got to stay off that roller coaster ride, focus on what you can control. That's the way that we prepare. And, listen, I would think 25 years ago, Coach Barnett would say, hey, don't listen to this, don't listen to that. They're going to listen. It just, make sure you focus and do what you always do and the way you prepare, and then take it with you to the game field and play for 4 quarters or whatever it takes.
Pat Fitzgerald is my guest here on ESPN Radio. For those who don't know, you were a great linebacker in your day and a 2-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. So you know what great defense looks like and how it is played. How would you describe the defense you have this year?
Well, I want to start with Mike Hankwitz, our defensive coordinator. I think it's 398 career wins now that he has. He's got to be the most successful coach in the country right now as far as wins. Putting together a great plan with our defensive staff, and then our guys executing and playing for each other. I mean, they don't care about stats. They just care about playing the game hard, physical, and for each other. And that unselfishness, I think, has led to our success.
They've been ridiculously good. And now you mentioned what a difficult year last year was. And I'm not to point any fingers. Teams win and lose as a team. But clearly, the so many struggles at the quarterback position. What has the addition of Peyton Ramsey in your mind? How would you put into words what that addition of that quarterback has meant for this team this year?
Very important. You look at our time before Peyton and, Clayton Thorson, all-time winningest quarterback in program history. We had a great run with him and unbelievable success and consistency. And, we were just inexperienced a year ago, and it showed. And we just couldn't get over the hump. But Peyton brings experience. He brings poise. He brings great leadership. He's making great decisions with the ball. And he's just a terrific person. I mean, since the day he's gotten into our program, the entire offense and team, the entire team has followed his lead. And I think it's given us great confidence going into each game. And then you're seeing the touchdowns here by Ramad Chokio Bowman. I mean, RCB is playing outstanding football right now, and just really proud of two seniors probably playing the best ball of their career.
They had 3 touchdowns the week before, and then the spectacular catch in the corner of the end zone Saturday. Pat Fitzgerald is with me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Pennzoil synthetic motor oils are made from natural gas, giving you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil, based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE 5W30. Okay, let's get to the really important stuff now. Something you may not know, but I do. Reese Davis is actually pretty athletic. So I think that if Joey really wanted to insult you, he would have said, "I see a lot of Mike Greenbergs running around out there. You know me." That would have been really insulting. So all kidding aside, the Reese Davis thing, I loved the way you guys handle it. I love that the social media has changed its name to the Fighting Reese Davises. I know Reese joined your team in a Zoom meeting this morning. Let's talk about that motivation.
Yeah, I mean, the guy sent me a text last week. I think it was Kyrick McGowan. Saying, "Hey, Coach, really to our Unity Council, did you see this?" And the guys just ran with it. They were having fun with it and enjoying it. In the pandemic year, when things are challenging, I think we're starting to show that we got some guys who can play like Joey. I mean, Joey was a great player and a great guy, and we ran with it and had some fun. And it was terrific to have Reese on with the squad this morning, and he challenged Ernest Brown. It was fun. It was a lot of fun, and that's all it is. It's just fun, good-natured college football. We ran with it, had a lot of fun, and now we're moving on, but just appreciate those two guys being good sports, and it's college football, man, and trying to find ways in 2020 to have some fun and make light of some things. Just appreciate Reese.
Listen, if it helps your team play, I'll say anything you want. I'll give you whatever it is you want me to say that'll get your players fired up. I'm more than willing to do it.
Yeah, I don't think we need any extra motivation, and frankly, no disrespect to those guys. I'm not sure it really motivated our guys a ton. They just had fun with it and enjoyed it. But listen, we need a lot. We need laughter this week, right? I mean, it's Thanksgiving week. We have a lot to be thankful for here at Northwestern. I'm very thankful for so many people, but most importantly, I'm really thankful for our healthcare providers. COVID-19 is an enemy that just is not going away, and all those out there throughout the country on the front lines, protecting us and keeping us healthy and safe. Our thoughts and our prayers are with you all. And we have family members here, our players' families, my family. We've got a lot of people that are in the healthcare industry providing us that health and safety. And for our head team physician, Jeff Mianis, our head athletic trainer, Kevin Kikagawa, and their staff, and all of our healthcare providers, we're very thankful for you here on Thanksgiving week.
That's beautifully said, and you're so classy that it almost makes me feel bad to end the interview this way. But I do think it is a question I need to ask, and that is, it is a question and then a follow-up. The question is, which do you feel have been more significant to your success this season, my pregame inspirational texts or my postgame celebratory texts? And then the follow-up is, which ones do you think have meant the most to the players?
I would say the post-game ones, because we've done our job for you and we've gotten the win. So I enjoy those. And I will tell you that I haven't shared any with the players yet. So you got a little bit of work to do on the pregame one. So we've already had you once. We keep winning, we'll have you again. But just appreciate you and all the Wildcat media members that are out there. Hopefully we're going to continue to make you proud. But we got a huge challenge this week in East Lansing against, again, this is the third team we're playing coming off a bye. So I've got to get our team healed up, refocused, re-energized, but a lot to be thankful for here on Thanksgiving week, and I'm really thankful for you and your friendship, buddy. Thanks a lot.
You're the best. Coach, congratulations. That was a wonderful win. Let's see what happens tomorrow night with the college football playoff rankings, and most importantly, go get them Saturday. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, who cares about rankings? Let's try to find a way to go 1-0. Thanks a lot. Go Cats.
Okay. I'm now motivated. I'm ready to play. If they were the Fighting Mike Greenbergs this week, Michigan State would have no chance, literally no chance whatsoever. Hi, it's Greeny. Happy Thanksgiving 2020. Enjoy as much football, family, and food as you can. And most importantly, stay safe. And thank you for being with us. Greeny with you, presented by Progressive Insurance. The other news that we got, Nick Saban, the legendary head football coach at Alabama, has tested positive for the coronavirus. If that sounds familiar to you, it is because we had such reports about a month ago. In that case, it proved to be a false positive. In this case, it is not being treated as such. Coach Saban is said to be experiencing very mild symptoms, but he definitively will not definitively will not be coaching this weekend as Alabama plays Auburn. Joining me now with the insight into that and much more is my favorite college football insider, Heather Dinich, on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. It's just the best. And Heather, I'm being told as I'm introducing you that you were on a conference call with information about Coach Saban. So please, what can you tell us?
Sure. He said that he doesn't have any fever, no muscle aches. He said he's the only person in the whole organization who tested positive. He said he has a little bit of a runny nose, but I feel fine. I asked him if he knows where he got this because he's the only person in the program who tested positive. He said he doesn't know. There's some people who come in and out of his house, but he has no idea how he might have contracted it. And he said he doesn't know if any other staff members or players will have to miss the game because of contact tracing. They haven't gone through that whole procedure yet. But he did say that Steve Sarkisian will call the plays and take over the day-to-day responsibilities in the football building, just as they did last time. As you mentioned, Greeny, they've kind of been through a trial run of this before when he had his false positive, and he will do the same thing in terms of staying home in isolation and contributing to the team through Zoom for preparation. But he obviously cannot have any involvement with the sideline on game day per NCAA rules.
So, yeah, when this happened the first time, it was right before the game against Georgia, which was a monster game against a team that is still ranked number 9 in the country despite 2 losses. This time against Auburn in what we traditionally call the Iron Bowl and is usually one of the biggest games of the season. How, for lack of a better way of putting it, Auburn is 22nd in the college football rankings that came out last night at 5-2. How significant is this, would you say, regarding that? Does this put Alabama, in your mind, in some jeopardy of losing this game?
Well, obviously you always want to have your head coach on the sideline, especially when it is Nick Saban, who's the best coach in the country. But at the same time, Alabama on the field is at least a touchdown best, at least than any other team in the country right now. If there was one thing all of us could probably agree on going into last night's ranking, it was that Alabama is number 1. I don't think not having him will be the reason they lose this game. I think if by chance they lose it, it happens because it's a rivalry game and anything can happen in the Iron Bowl. We've seen that before. But I would not expect Auburn to win this game, and I think they will be well prepared, and I think they just have a phenomenal amount of talent this year.
Fair enough. So that's the latest on the story of today. And you're right, Alabama, very, very good. They have the second best strength of record in the country, actually, according to all of the metrics that I'm given all the time. Who's first? Let me see if I can remember who was first in strength of record. Oh, that's right. Oh, it's Northwestern that is actually number 1 in the country in strength of record. Thank you for reminding me of that. Heather Dinich with me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and I introduced you, Heather, as my favorite college football insider of all time, and that is because in what I think was honest, but otherwise could have been a blatant act of sucking up to the host on Get Up this morning, you named Northwestern as the team that you think is the likeliest to get into the top 4 when this is all said and done, out of the teams that are not currently in it. Heather, explain for everyone why that is.
Well, because they have the easiest path. And by easiest, I mean you win the West, you have a chance to knock off Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, and you're in. You're an undefeated Big Ten champion that would have defeated a top 4 team in Ohio State. And I think that they can beat Ohio State, Greeny, based on what we just saw this past weekend, which is Justin Fields turned it over 3 times, and the defense surrendered almost 500 passing yards. You put that up against what Northwestern did defensively, which was, I believe, 5 takeaways against Wisconsin, and that doesn't bode very well for Ohio State. So they're not invincible. They're not as good as they were last year, at least what we've seen through this point. But everyone has to remember as well that nobody in the Big Ten or the Pac-12 is in midseason form. They're in 4-game form, right? So they're still growing and getting better. It'll be interesting to see what both of those teams look like by December 19th.
Yeah, Northwestern sitting at 5-0. They have allowed a total of 10 second-half points in their 5 games this year, and their defensive ranking is actually number 2. I have all of I love this sheet, by the way. Hembo prints this out for me, and there's nothing I look forward to more than this sheet. There is more information on this sheet, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee Top 25, with all of the metrics that our analytics groups put together. So let's go to the big picture here, Heather, for those who were not with us this morning and did not get to hear your perspective. You had one significant gripe with what the committee did last night. For those who've not heard it, What was that?
BYU sank like a rock to number 14. They're undefeated. They are looking up at 3 two-loss teams. And if you're BYU, and my Twitter timeline can account for this, you are so mad this morning. And Kalani Sitake went on TV yesterday. He talked about how his team's going to use this for motivation. And you can pick apart BYU's schedule. It's dreadful. It is dreadful. But the committee chair, Gary Barta, said repeatedly that the selection committee is using eye tests this year more so than any other. If you're watching BYU, watching them, I agree with Desmond Howard this morning, how do you not see that they are better than number 14?
Yeah, and what is the story with the Washington game? I keep hearing differing views. People say they're not Washington. They want to play Washington, or there's some talk about them playing Washington, which obviously would be it's a power conference opponent. It would be a meaningful game if they looked really good in that game. Then people say that they're ducking that game, and I saw the coach on the special last night saying that's not true at all. What is the actual story there?
So a source in the Pac-12 told me that Washington tried everything it could to play BYU. BYU also wanted to play Washington. Here's the problem with BYU and any team out there trying to schedule a game as a non-conference game against the Pac-12. If the Pac-12 has a team in its league come available by Thursday of game week, that game gets preference over the non-conference game. So, Greeny, imagine this. You're BYU. You want to play Washington. You're preparing for Washington all week. You buy plane tickets. You get hotel rooms. You plan a trip to Washington. And then on Thursday, the Pac-12 says, oh, we have Utah at Washington. Who wants to sign up for that gamble? So there's a reason that BYU and any other team out there has to hesitate before you play a Pac-12 team, because that is in their guidelines. If a conference team becomes available by Thursday, that's who they're going to play.
I get it. I understand that. The flip side of it is, if you play that game, maybe you have a chance to move way up. I mean, the point is, right now, they have no chance, right? There is no path. You just talked about Northwestern as an easy path. Nothing could be less easy. They have to beat Ohio State, and that's one of the hardest things you could have to do in the country. But it's easy to see what they have to do. With BYU, it's easy to see there's nothing they can do. So to schedule this game and roll the dice on it, I don't know. I can see the logic. I understand fully what you're saying, but I also see the logic behind saying, you know what? If there's any shot at this thing that we have, it's going to be by playing this game. Maybe we should do it.
Right. Well, you can do that. But then literally right now, this morning, Utah is playing at Washington. So even if they would have said that, BYU would have gotten bumped.
Oh, I see. That happened. What you're telling me is that the scenario in which they would have gone to play, the one that tore it apart, has already come to pass. That game wasn't taking place no matter what. Okay, fair enough. Somewhere along the lines of this day, I had missed that news. Okay, very good. This is why we have Heather with us here. What else is big stuff here? Let's talk about Notre Dame and Clemson. We talked briefly about it yesterday. Was it any surprise to you that Clemson is ahead of Ohio State, 3 where Ohio State is 4, and is that meaningful in any way?
It's meaningful in the seeding, if this is how it shakes out, because whoever's in that number 4 spot, you don't want to play Bama in a semifinal. It's 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. So that is why it's meaningful in that way. It's also meaningful because at Notre Dame at 2 and Clemson at 3, that also indicates that, yes, if Clemson were to beat Notre Dame in the ACC championship game, they both split with their losses to each other. It is quite possible that you could see both of those teams finish in the top 4 as well, because Clemson would have lost only in double overtime to Notre Dame, and obviously the Irish losing to Clemson in the ACC championship game. But that being said, the other thing to note about this ranking is that there are 4 Alabama, A&M, Florida, and Georgia SEC teams in the top 10, which also says the committee likes the SEC, and maybe you could see 2 SEC teams in there. So if I had to pick who has a better chance of getting 2 teams in the top 4, I would say it's the SEC because of the depth over the ACC.
Fair enough. And then one more for you, Heather, and I appreciate all of this extra time here. The one team from outside of the usual suspects that, aside from Northwestern, who could crash this party, it looks like, is Cincinnati, which is sitting there at number 7. Now, before I came in here, I think I saw, was their game this weekend postponed? What chance do they have of getting into this thing?
Their game this week, you're correct, at Temple canceled, and they can't make it up on December 5th because of contact tracing. Cincinnati's actually really lucky that they have opened December 5th because they're not missing 2 games. I don't think missing this 1 game at Temple, which they would be heavy favorites in, is going to hurt them. But if Cincinnati is going to move into the top 4, it obviously has to finish undefeated as American Athletic Conference champions. But then everything I just talked about the SEC and the ACC putting 2 teams in, you got to get rid of that. So you need Notre Dame to beat Clemson, knock them out. You need Alabama to beat Florida, knock them out of the conversation. And then you have to have A&M lose at Auburn to eliminate them. So that is a lot of pieces that need to fall into place for Cincinnati. But I'm telling you, they have you're talking about Northwestern, number 1 in strength of record. Cincinnati's number 4.
Yeah.
They're number 4. They have, on paper, they have a case to be ahead of A&M and Florida. So they're not in bad shape. They need a lot of help, though.
Yeah, strength of record, which it seems to me should be the most important thing. Again, for those who don't know how this works, they have 3 different resume rankings that they put on this sheet that I have. There's strength of schedule, there's strength of record, and there's game control. Game control basically means how big were leads were, sort of the style points that we have traditionally talked about. Strength of record basically is how hard has it been to get to where you are? How good do you have to be in order to have the record that you have? And again, Northwestern is number 1 in that. Alabama is 2. Notre Dame is 3. Cincinnati is 4, and Texas A&M is 5. It always feels to me that should be the most important metric. Heather, I enjoyed this. Thank you very much. If I don't get a chance to talk to you, a very happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. I've really enjoyed this over the course of the last few weeks, and we have a lot to get to as we continue to go forward. So we'll talk to you soon, and thank you.
Thanks so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Hi, it's Greeny. Happy Thanksgiving 2020. Enjoy as much football, family, and food as you can. And most importantly, stay safe. And thank you for being with us.
I struggled with symptoms like frequent gas and stomach pain for years.
I was bloated all the time with daily diarrhea.
At first, I thought it was what I was eating.
I kept thinking it was stomach issues.
So I did my research and talked to my doctor, and we finally uncovered the truth.
It was actually EPI. Exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI, is a condition where your pancreas is unable to help break down your food.
It can lead to symptoms like diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, unexplained weight loss, and oily stools.
And EPI symptoms can be confused with those of other common digestive conditions, like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, and celiac disease.
So getting to the right diagnosis meant being more open with my doctor about the severity of my symptoms and how often they were happening.
But there's good news. EPI is manageable, so don't wait any longer. Use the symptom checker at identifyepi.com and schedule a visit or call with your doctor to ask, could I have EPI?
Brought to you by AbbVie.
Coming up on the Max Kellerman Show, who took control of the NFC East? Can Brady bounce back? What about Lamar? Check it out. Weekdays, 2 Eastern, the Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio and ESPN+.
Saturday on ACC Network. Brennan Armstrong and the Who's take their win streak into Tallahassee.
Armstrong over the middle and into the end zone, a touchdown.
As the Noles look to put on a show in Doak Cameron.
Travis keeps it himself. Touchdown, Florida State.
I'm gonna come alive when it's on. Now watch me work.
ACC and primetime football presented by Geico. Virginia versus Florida State. Saturday at 8 Eastern on ACCN. Go to getaccn.com for instant access.
This week on Football Sunday on ESPN Radio. Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, and the NFC-leading New Orleans Saints head to Mile High to face the Denver Broncos. Coverage begins Sunday at 4 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Podcasts, no matter what you're a fan of.
Welcome into the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. Hollywood mogul McConaughey. This is the kind of guest you're going to get on the SV Pod.
His reputation is destroyed. I don't feel sorry for Donald Sterling.
The final question comes from Lenny.
The legend that is Adam Schefter.
It's Julie Foudy. Simone Biles is in the house.
Listen to me now. Believe me later on.
This has been ESPN Daily. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
ESPN Podcasts. Something for everyone. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
The 2020 Jimmy V Classic. Top-ranked Gonzaga versus number 15 West Virginia.
This is getting ridiculous. Gonzaga, 11 three-pointers.
Second-ranked Baylor faces number 8 Illinois.
Baylor's got it. Drive up for the dunk, and he got it, and he's fouled.
2020 Jimmy V Classic. Coverage begins Wednesday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN.
From Columbia, South Carolina, Bulldogs, Gamecocks on SEC Saturday night.
Another big haul. He's off to the races again. Fifth touchdown of the night for Kevin Harris.
SEC Saturday night. 9th-ranked Georgia versus South Carolina. Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network and streaming live on the ESPN app.
College football this Saturday on ESPN Radio. It's an SEC showdown in Columbia, South Carolina, when the 13th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs face the Gamecocks in South Carolina's final home game of the season.
Touchdown! Another strong, powerful run for the Georgia tailback.
13th-ranked Georgia at South Carolina. Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the SEC Network. Presented by Goodyear. Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Williams, and Zubin Mahente.
The Giants have played well all season long under Joe Judge, who may be the best coach within the division. I don't know that the Cowboys will win the division. I don't know that the Giants will win the division. I don't know if the Eagles will win the division. For all we know, they may lose every game coming forward, and the football team may all of a sudden emerge and win the division.
Keyshawn, Jay, Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio or streaming live on the ESPN app. Janae and Golick Jr.
We've talked so much about depth and the way you build your roster. If what the Lakers did influences anybody, like, man, if your top couple are just that good, we'll piece together the rest, we'll figure it out, and we'll make it work knowing that there's now a proven model for players of that caliber. And Kevin Durant, when he's healthy, is a player of that caliber to go out there and make it happen with a lot lesser hanging in the wings for you.
Janae and Golick Jr. Weekdays at 4 Eastern on ESPN Radio. And now, watch exclusively on ESPN+.
Unhappy at your job? You don't really have a career, you have a job, or maybe you're out of work altogether? Listen to me. You can start a new life as an IT pro in as little as 4 months from the comfort of your own home, even if you have zero computer experience. Sound too good to be true? Go to mycomputercareer.edu. Take the free career evaluation today. Live online classes. Meet just twice a week. Financial aid, including the GI Bill, is available to those who qualify. It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
What are real people saying about Skechers Arch Fit footwear? Joe from Hilton Head says, I need arch support, and these shoes have it. Joe, Skechers Arch Fit don't just have arch support, they have podiatrist-certified arch support that was developed with over 20 years of data. Next, Pete from New York writes, great for walking. I stand a lot of work, and the Arch Fit keeps me comfortable. My feet don't feel tired at the end of the day. Okay, Pete gets it. He's walking, working, just living in Skechers Arch Fit. These shoes are great for virtually everybody. Find podiatrist-certified Skechers Arch Fit at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
At Shell, we know from the time you get up to the time you wrap up,
good night,
there's a lot of meetups, eat-ups, and hurry-ups. So come to Shell and get 3 things done at once. Fill up with Shell V Power Nitro Plus to help keep your engine running like new. Save up with the Fuel Rewards program and never pay full price for gas again. And snack up with in-store rewards to save even more at the pump. Make the most of the stop you need to make with Shell. And engines that continuously use Shell V Power Nitro Plus premium gasoline. See full terms and conditions at fuelrewards.com.
The radio you're listening to is about to get a whole lot better. Because SiriusXM is free now through December 1st, no credit card required. Just press the SAT button in your car and hear ad-free music like never before. Dedicated, expertly curated channels for everything from country and pop to rock and hip-hop. Plus sports talk and news, and even more available for free online and on the app. Just press the SAT button in your car and listen free to SiriusXM through December 1st.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Happy Thanksgiving. In the first of 2 NFL games today, after spotting the Lions an early 7-0 lead, the Texans scored 2 touchdowns in a span of 100 seconds, a pick 6 by J.J. Watt and a Deshaun Watson 2-yard TD pass to C.J. Prosise. Houston up 13-7 early second quarter. At least 3 Ravens players testing positive for COVID-19 yesterday, reports ESPN's Jamison Hensley. 4th day of a coronavirus outbreak that led to tonight's game against the Steelers being postponed and tentatively rescheduled Sunday at 1:15 Eastern. Dolphins optimistic QB Tua Tagovailoa will play Sunday against the Jets despite a sore thumb.
Download the DraftKings app and use code Greeny to get a free shot at millions of dollars up for grabs this week with your first deposit. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
Hey, everybody, it is Mike Greenberg wishing you a very safe and healthy and happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for being with us here on ESPN Radio. We will be back on Monday live, but right now, please enjoy as we continue looking back at some of the best moments, conversations, and interviews that we've had since we came back in August. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We will have Vin Scully with us in a moment, and I've said many times that it is difficult to put into words the relationship that a fan can have with a baseball announcer. All the sports are wonderful, and baseball isn't even my favorite sport necessarily. But that relationship, based upon the daily nature of it and the fact that all of the games, for the most part, are broadcast locally or regionally as opposed to nationally, you just develop a relationship that is different than you have, I think, with any other announcer. So I've said many times, for me, baseball will always sound like Phil Rizzuto's voice. And then I went to Chicago, and I discovered Harry Carey. And I've said many times, Harry Carey was my first friend in Chicago, even though I never met him. And so I know the way people feel after the career that this man had. He called 25 World Series, 12 All-Star games, 3 perfect games, 20 no-hitters. You just heard his call of Kirk Gibson's legendary home run in the 88 World Series. He called Hank Aaron's 715th home run. When he began broadcasting Dodger baseball, gasoline cost 27 cents a gallon, a postage stamp cost 3 cents, and minimum wage was 75 cents per hour in this country. It is my honor to welcome on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line the one and only Vin Scully to ESPN Radio. Vin, thank you so much for taking this time. I hope you're feeling well today.
Mike, I feel fine. Thank you for asking, and I trust you are the same.
I am. Thank you. Today, 4 years to the day since Vin Scully broadcast his last Dodger game, and it is really such a treat for me. I can't tell you the reaction that I'm getting from people when I told them you were going to be with me. So let's go through as much as we can in the time that we have. And I'd like to start at the very beginning. I mentioned that you began your broadcasting career in 1950 in Brooklyn. What are your, as you look back on it now, your fondest recollections of those earliest days for you in Brooklyn?
Well, we had a relationship in the broadcast booth that I don't believe we'll ever see again. In essence, Red Barber was the father, Connie Desmond was the older brother, and I was the kid brother. And thank goodness both Red and Connie made sure that I would get through it without making too many gaps or mistakes. And once in a while, because he really cared that I would succeed, Red Barber would treat me like a father and son relationship, so that he would correct me after the game, not on the air. I'll always remember during my first season, I mentioned that Willie Mays was the finest or greatest ball player I ever saw. And when the broadcast ended, Red said, "Young Scully," he said, "you have not been around long enough to tell us the greatest ball player you ever saw." And immediately I was chastened and realized he was correct. And then Connie, being the older brother, and he would say, "Oh, come on, you're fine. You're doing great." So it was a remarkable atmosphere, and I don't think you'll ever see or hear that again.
It's an extraordinary story. In your very first game, Jackie Robinson was hitting cleanup. And Vin, in light of the climate in this country right now, he seems especially relevant, maybe as much so as practically ever. When you think of him today, of Jackie Robinson, what do you think of?
Well, I think of an outstanding ball player. I can see that big smile and laugh. I remember we ice skated, or at least he was going to try, up in Grossinger's in New York. That's a famous resort. And interesting little bit of a story. we were both sent up there to talk to the patronage at Grossinger's about baseball. It was an idea to promote fans and, anyway, to stir interest. And I arrived, being a New Yorker kid raised in ice skating in the winter. I carried my skates. Jackie and his wife, Rachel, arrived. Rachel was about 7 months pregnant. And Jack said, oh, you're going to go skating? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I'll go with you. I said, well, fine. So Jackie and I went into the dressing room. Meanwhile, Rachel, at 7 months pregnant, went with the lady to get her skates, and I was scared to death about her. Anyway, Jackie and I are sitting alongside of each other, putting on our skates. And Jackie, out of the blue, suddenly said to me, Vinny, when we go out there, I'll race you. And I was shocked, and I looked at Jackie, and I said, Jack, you're from Southern California, a football star, baseball star, great athlete. I never knew you skated. And he said, I've never been on skates in my life. And I said, well, there's no way that you could beat me. And he said, no, but that's how I'll learn. The competitive spirit inside that man was truly remarkable. And we were good friends. Interesting for me, my first game to broadcast was in Philadelphia. The Dodgers opened that year. And during spring training, I got to know Don Newcomb very well, God rest his soul. And Nuke was going to pitch that game. And I would say to him, come on, Don, really be ready for my debut. I want you to strike out everybody. And, of course, with that big belly laugh, he'd laugh. And so before the game, Red assigned me, we'll say, the fourth inning. And I said, great. And then I was thinking, I'm going to broadcast Don Newcomb's first game. What a treat this is. Newcomb was knocked out of the game before we got to my inning. So, and we gagged about that ever since. I mean, that was a running gag with Newcomb and myself.
Hi, it's Greeny. Happy Thanksgiving 2020. Enjoy as much football, family, and food as you can. And most importantly, stay safe.
Want to hear something amazing? Discover matches all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year, automatically, dollar for dollar, with no limit on how much you can earn. Extra cash? Come on, how amazing is that? In fact, it's even more amazing when you realize all the places where Discover is accepted. 99% of places in the U.S. that take credit cards. So when it comes to Discover, get used to hearing yes more often. Learn more at discover.com/yes. 2020 Nielsen Report. Limitations apply.
The radio you're listening to is about to get a whole lot better. Because SiriusXM is free now through December 1st, no credit card required. Just press the Sat button in your car and hear ad-free music like never before. Dedicated, expertly curated channels for everything from country and pop to rock and hip-hop. Plus sports talk and news, and even more available for free online and on the app. Just press the Sat button in your car and listen free to SiriusXM through December 1st.
The Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats.
It's not quite anarchy, but these players are making it happen through back channels. You have to assume James Harden wants the Nets because the other two stars on that team want him. You know, they're not relying on general managers to broker these deals anymore. They're doing it themselves.
They've taken the power for themselves, and it's a lot of fun.
You want more from the Dan Le Batard Show? Check out the podcast, wherever you get your podcast.
The journey happens here.
This Champions Classic is the best thing to start a season. You couldn't have drawn it up better if you tried.
We've got your blue bloods and blue chippers.
You can't teach that, baby.
Championship DNA and classic duels.
That gets my juices flowing, man. I can't wait.
College basketball is here. It's time to go to work. The State Farm Champions Classic, Duke, Michigan State at 7:30 Eastern. Then Kentucky, Kansas, Tuesday on ESPN.
Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Williams, and Zubin Mehenti.
If I'm Matt Nagy and I got both of these guys as healthy, I'm just going to roll with Mitch Trubisky. I'm diving all in on that.
Does it really matter who he rolls with? It doesn't really matter who he rolls with. It's over. This is called it is over. Sorry, Matt. I'm just saying, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, my friends are in Chicago, it's been over for a minute.
Keyshawn, Jay, Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio. or streaming live on the ESPN app.
An ABC college football doubleheader. First, a battle with Big 12 championship implications. Number 13, Iowa State at number 17, Texas at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Then, a highly anticipated ACC showdown. Number 2, Notre Dame at number 19, North Carolina at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. ABC College Football presented by PlayStation 5, Friday on ABC and streaming live on the ESPN app.
The 2020 Jimmy V Classic. Top-ranked Gonzaga versus number 15 West Virginia. Second-ranked Baylor faces number 8 Illinois. Coverage begins Wednesday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN.
From Columbia, South Carolina. Bulldogs, Gamecocks on SEC Saturday night.
Off to the races again. Fifth touchdown of the night for Kevin Harris.
SEC Saturday night. 9th-ranked Georgia versus South Carolina. Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network and streaming live on the ESPN app.
The 13th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs head to South Carolina to face the Gamecocks. Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the SEC Network. Presented by Goodyear. Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Williams, and Zubin Mehenti.
The Giants have played well all season long under Joe Judge, who may be the best coach within the division. I don't know that the Cowboys will win the division. I don't know that the Giants will win the division. I don't know if the Eagles will win the division. For all we know, they may lose every game coming forward, and the football team may all of a sudden emerge and win the division.
Keyshawn, Jay, Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio or streaming live on the ESPN app.
It's Shea Pepler-Cornett coming up Friday on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. We're reacting to the Texans, Lions, and Cowboys-Washington game. Who will be in first place in the NFC East? Plus, the Bears have a big decision to make ahead of Week 12. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, 6 Eastern, ESPN Radio.
Chiney Angola Jr. here, just wishing everyone a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving holiday weekend. We hope you enjoyed the time, and we hope you tune in and listen to Chiney Angola Jr. every weekday, 4 to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and streaming on ESPN+.
Are you ready for an offensive feast on Monday night? Well, the Seahawks are ready to let Russ cook.
They already know what's going to happen.
And DK Metcalf is ready to feed. Can Wentz lead the Eagles to the upset?
Tell you one thing we don't do is we don't lay down.
Are you ready for Monday night? Seahawks, Eagles, Monday at 8 Eastern on ESPN.
The Woj Pod with Adrian Wojnarowski.
They call Giannis Antetokounmpo simply the greatest draft story ever told.
I didn't know my teammates. I went to practice and there was OJ Mayo, and I was like, they told me you're with OJ. I was like, who's OJ? He was pissed. I was like, sorry, I never watched NBA. I watched EuroLeague basketball. And even if I watched the NBA, it was, highlights.
You can listen to the Woj Pod on the ESPN app or wherever you listen to podcasts. This week on Football Sunday on ESPN Radio.
Derrick Henry trying to dive toward the pylon, and he hits it. Touchdown, Titans.
The Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts go head-to-head in an AFC South showdown with first place on the line.
I got nothing left. Touchdown, T.Y. Hilton.
The Titans at the Colts. Coverage begins Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio.
I'm Pablo Torre, host of the podcast ESPN Daily. Every weekday morning, I will bring you the best sports story you'll hear all day. Today on ESPN Daily, Steelers legend Rocky Bleier has 4 Super Bowl rings, but right after he got drafted to play for Pittsburgh, he also got drafted to serve in the Vietnam War. In a re-air of our Veterans Day episode, Tom Rinaldi joins the show to share that story. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, everybody, it is Mike Greenberg wishing you a very safe and healthy and happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for being with us here on ESPN Radio. We will be back on Monday live, but right now, please enjoy as we continue looking back at some of the best moments, conversations, and interviews that we've had since we came back in August. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. The unmistakable, legendary voice of Vin Scully with me. He is now on Twitter. Everyone in the world should be following Vin Scully, who is on Twitter at @TheVinScully. Scully. Let me ask you, if I may, the impossible questions that I'm sure you are asked literally every single day. And we'll start with this one. What is the greatest game, in your opinion, the greatest game you ever called?
The greatest game I ever called, probably because of the significance of it, a perfect game in the World Series. I don't know how you can top that very often. Koufax's perfect game was a magnificent spectacle where the Dodgers only had one hit against Bob Henley. But I guess for someone to pitch a perfect game on the World Series, it can't get much better than that. Although when MLB began to broadcast, the very first thing they did, their opening telecast, was that World Series game pitched by Don Larson. And I was watching football in the late fall, and I knew that game was going to come on, and I had never seen it. And so I figured out when it would start and when it would be the time where the great Mel Allen would hand it over to me. And I went back to the baseball, and sure enough, it was the middle of the fifth inning, and Mel handed it to me, and I thought, oh, great, I'm going to be able to listen because I'd never heard it before. And the telecast began for me, and it was so dull, it was excruciating to me. Because in those days, the newspaper people constantly badgered announcers saying that they talked too much. So Mel and I not only barely talked on the air, we also did not say anything about the fact that a perfect game was evolving. I guess it started with Mel because in the first 4.5 innings, he referred not to a no-hitter, but so that's the 10th consecutive out, the 11th consecutive. So when I got it, I certainly deferred to the great Mel Allen, and I continued that that's the 18th consecutive, the 19th. And meanwhile, the camera work was not as sophisticated as it is today, and you basically had one shot, and that was the mound and the hitter in Yankee Stadium, for instance. And to be honest, I thought the broadcast was so dull that I turned it off and went back to football.
My goodness, Vin Scully is with me. I have a suspicion others might feel differently, but it is thrilling to hear you, or fascinating to hear you say that. Continuing the impossible questions, you got in trouble in your first broadcast, you said, for naming Willie Mays as the greatest player you'd ever seen. Now, if I were to ask you, I think you are more than equipped to answer. Who is the greatest player you ever saw?
Well, I would still say Willie Mays, but again, remember, I grew up watching the National League. I worked the National League. We didn't have interleague play. I realized that there were great players, especially Joe DiMaggio, and the other numbers that were put up by Mickey Mantle probably equate to the same, if not even slightly better than Mays. But because of Mantle's injury to his leg, I think he stepped in a drainage, something in Yankee Stadium, and from then on he couldn't cover the ground that he normally could. But Mays was spectacular every day he played, and I just thought, in my humble opinion, because there are certainly many great players, but I thought that all around, the threat of a home run, a base hit, a stolen base, a great catch, a great throw, all of that defined Willie Mays. And one other thing about Mays that always struck me, when I was in school trying to play baseball at Fordham, I played center field. And, of course, my big concern was charging a base hit and having it go through my legs and go all the way to the center field fence. And I always watched big league center fielders especially. And when the Dodgers played in the Polo Grounds, it was, I believe, 483 feet away from the base of the clubhouse to home plate. And every outfielder I ever saw was a little, what would be the right word, almost timid about a base hit getting through him and rolling all the way to eternity. Willie Mays played center field like he was a shortstop. There was not a thought in his mind that the ball might get away from him or roll all the way to the center field clubhouse. And that struck me, too, as just part the overall picture of Mays as a great player.
Vin Scully is with me. You can follow him on Twitter at @VinScully right now. You know, I opened this conversation by saying that the relationship fans have with an announcer is such a special one. How would you describe that relationship in reverse? How would you describe the relationship that you had for all those years with them?
I was quoted several times, and I meant it from the bottom of my heart. I often told the crowds that I needed you more than you needed me. And when I was retiring, the last week that I did games at Dodger Stadium, I had a sign made, and the sign draped over the wall of the clubhouse, actually the broadcasting booth, and it just simply said, "I'll miss you, Vin." And that was my relationship with the fans. The last day of the season, the Dodgers allowed me to play a recording on the PA system, my singing, God bless us, of "Wind Beneath My Wings." I had made a recording about that dedicated to my wife, Sandy, and I just wanted the crowd to know how I felt. So on the last day of Scully at Dodger Stadium, the crowd showed great patience. So did the team. They were bursting to celebrate, but they stood quietly in the middle of the diamond, and they played "Wind Beneath My Wings," the song that was for my wife, but on that particular day, I was dedicating it to the fans.
It's beautifully said. I have limited time with you here, but I have one last question, if I may. You know, Vin Scully, our nation is in a divided and at times disheartening place, and I just wonder over the many years, what role have you seen the game of baseball play historically during challenging times in our nation, and what role do you think it can play now?
Well, that's asking a lot of me because in some respect, despite broadcasting a lot of games, I live a very small, quiet life. All I know is that in Ebbets Field, and certainly here at Dodger Stadium, I've seen black and white players get along extremely well. They have a shared experience of the game, and they each have a strong desire to win. And so I keep thinking to myself, please, God, bring everyone in America together like the ball players are. Let them all agree we want to live happily and peacefully in this world, and let's just stop talking. Let's stop protesting and setting fire to places. Somebody has to get leaders from either side to sit down and see if we can't get along like a good baseball team does. You forget all about color when you're playing a game. You should be able to forget all about player living your days out in this world.
Vin Scully, I can't begin to tell you how much it means to me that you took this time today. I know that your schedule remains busy, and I just can't tell you how much it meant to people to know that you were coming on and to hear your voice today and any day. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. The very best to you and to your family, and I hope we get to do it again sometime.
Thank you, Mike. You've been very generous in your compliments, for which I really appreciate. And above all, it's been an honor to have a chance to chat with you. So God bless and continued success.
Hi, it's Greeny. Happy Thanksgiving 2020. Enjoy as much football, family, and food as you can. And most importantly, stay safe. And thank you for being with us.
Ever wonder just how far an extra mile really goes? Drive a Mercedes-Benz van and find out. Start with a network of over 250 authorized dealerships, backed by a sales force ready to help you with everything from customization to service on vans like the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter that's tailored to your lifestyle. With options like Blind Spot Assist and MBUX voice command for spoken directions, weather, and more.
The route is being calculated.
So whether you're enjoying life on the trail or working hard on the job, see how far an extra mile can really go by taking the first step into an authorized Mercedes-Benz van dealership today. Now with IRS Section 179, businesses could be eligible for up to a $25,900 tax deduction. That's up to $5,439 in tax savings.
Options and model availability may vary. See dealer for details about costs and terms. Some equipment described as optional. $5,439 tax savings based on 21% federal tax rate and eligibility to claim full $25,900 Section 179 vehicle deduction. Your tax rate and eligibility may vary. Consult your tax advisor for more information. Limits may apply. Visit mbvans.com. Offer valid through December 31st, 2020.
Spain and Fitz.
Lamar Jackson. I'm trying to figure out whether this is a guy who peaked and now people have figured him out. He has regressed in completion percentage, passing yards per game, passer rating, sacks taken.
It hasn't looked easy and it hasn't looked fluid for Lamar Jackson. I'm not ready to jump off the Lamar Jackson ship at this point, but I am curious at why it's looked difficult.
Spain and Fitz, weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, your smart speaker, or wherever you stream your audio.
In mid-March, we all entered, I think 8 months ago tomorrow, we all entered a different phase, and we were not really prepared for it. We were prepared to do what we always do, and I think collectively we've gone down a very interesting road on this journey, and I wouldn't ever trade it. It's the most meaningful period of this show's existence and in my career. And I always, you never know at what point you get off the trail and do something else. But if that day was today, calls like this and the conversations that we have had during this period are incredibly important and meaningful and special.
The Paul Feinbaum Show, weekdays at 3 Eastern on the ESPN app and on the SEC Network.
Janae and Golick Jr.
I think James, he could either end up in Brooklyn, a scenario where, if you think about these guys, Kyrie, misunderstood. KD, misunderstood. A lot of people, for someone who has rewrote the record books the last few years on scoring points and getting buckets, people have a lot of things to say about James Harden's game. There are many places where James can go and be an instant boost in championship odds. For it to happen in Brooklyn, I understand.
Janae and Golick Jr., weekdays at 4 Eastern on ESPN Radio. And now, watch exclusively on ESPN+.
Saturday on ACC Network. Brennan Armstrong and the Who's take their win streak into Tallahassee.
Armstrong over the middle and into the end zone, a touchdown.
As the Noles look to put on a show in Doak Cameron.
Travis keeps it himself. Touchdown, Florida State.
I'm gonna come alive when it's on. Now watch me work. ACC and primetime football presented by Geico. Virginia versus Florida State. Saturday at 8 Eastern on ACCN. Go to getaccn.com for instant access.
This week on Football Sunday on ESPN Radio. It's an AFC South showdown with first place on the line when the Tennessee Titans head to Indianapolis to face the Colts. Coverage begins Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio.
One app, one tap, that's that. One swipe, one slide, sing it back. One app running with elite QBs. Russell got the cannon throwing clutch TDs. Lillard crossing over, step behind the line. Ain't no need to watch the clock, cause you know it's dang time, yeah.
You know what?
One app with the 30 for 30s. 2-finger push-ups, Bruce Lee showing no mercy. Fat Five got the crew on deck. Best believe Bo knows OG dual threat, yeah. No one else goes deeper, that's a fact. One slide, one tap, it's the ESPN app.
Download now.
The 13th ranked Georgia Bulldogs head to South Carolina to face the Gamecocks. Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the SEC Network. Presented by Goodyear.
ESPN Podcasts, no matter what you're a fan of.
Welcome into the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast.
Hollywood mogul, McConaughey. This is the kind of guest you're going to get on the SV Pod.
His reputation is destroyed. I don't feel sorry for Donald Sterling.
The final question comes from Lenny.
The legend that is Adam Schefter.
It's Julie Foudy. Simone Biles is in the house.
Listen to me now. Believe me later on.
This has been ESPN Daily. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
ESPN Podcasts, something for everyone. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Williams, and Zubin Mahente.
The Raiders are the only team, in my opinion, that I feel can give the Chiefs a run for their money. I think that if the Steelers and the Raiders are both there, but because I'm coming off the Raiders' near victory against the Chiefs and the style in which they played, makes me believe that they're the ones that can give them a tough out.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio.